I honestly did not think that this prompt was gonna be this hard. I was like, yeah, I have a few older manga titles. Yeah, this will be a cinch. No, no, that was not the case. Hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. So very excited that you're here. It is another week of Top 5 Wednesday. And in case if you're not familiar with it, in a nutshell, basically each week I answer a prompt using 5 books, but in this case I do manga to reflect the said prompt. And today's prompt is we are featuring books, or in my case again manga, that has been published before the 2000s. And again, I thought this was going to be pretty easy because a few titles were coming to mind. Like I have been collecting, was it Kare First Love? And I was like, oh, that's definitely an older series. We could definitely feature that today. I looked and no, the series was serialized in Japan in like 2004, and I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, well, I have Lovecom checked out from my library. I could definitely do that. And I think that one was like 2004, 2001. I'm like, okay, like, we're gonna have to go do some research. So that is what I did for today's prompt because we wanted to feature titles, older titles, and give them some love because there's so many good books that are releasing. There's plenty of new series that are gonna be coming out later this year. The older titles are still just as important and need just as much love as even as the newer titles. Especially I feel like if you go even like further back where you have earlier in the years, like you have a lot of different stories that can be very groundbreaking when it comes to stereotypes or when it comes to gender or politics, you know, just a mashup of those things that were really mind-blowing at its time and still today can affect us in a mind-blowing kind of way. While I don't know if any of my picks are necessarily like groundbreaking per se, I was impressed to see that some of these titles are actually getting like printed in English for the first, well, no, I take that back. They have been printed in English before, but they're getting special attention. And so that was really cool to see that publishers are doing that. Granted, there's some on my list I'm like, they need some special attention. And of course, we'll just go ahead and start off with number 1 that definitely deserves a reprint, a brand new sparkly edition is Mars. This came out in Japan in 1996, and I think the last final volume like published in 2000, I think. And I do want to make a note that I'm basing all of my picks on when they released in Japan. Maybe that's cheating, but it was a lot harder to do when they like released here in the US before the 2000s. So anyway, Mars is one of those titles I feel, try to think of how to word this. So when we think of older titles sometimes, I feel like especially in manga, we think, well, man, that really shows its age. It's not relevant to today, or the tropes are really bad and people are just like, oh, that is so icky. I can't believe I like this at one point. But I agree with so many people that have read the manga Mars that it ages so well. Like it still holds true and stands very strong and relevant to today, and it is a very, very moving story. I do have a video review here on this channel if you'd like to check it out because I binge read it in like just a few days last summer because once you start this series, you are just fully engaged and just need more of what's going to happen to these characters, what's going on, because there's a lot of different elements. There's definitely some drama, but like it's not, try to think of an example, like yes, there's drama, but I don't feel like it's soap opera kind of drama, if that makes sense. Like there's a purpose behind the drama despite like making the audience gasp or other characters or whatever. There's a lot of painful and very heavy and mature topics that are talked about and discussed that's like, wow, this is really moving and engaging. And there were there were a few times, especially as the series goes on, where I just had to stop and take a breather because the heartache that these characters have faced and the things they have to address is really, wow, it's a lot to think about and comprehend what these characters are going through. I definitely recommend reading it. Again, it's one of those series that stands strong. The tropes are not cringeworthy or anything like that and is so relevant to people today. I definitely saw myself a lot in the main character, and just as the couple as a whole was really taken aback how much I was able to relate to it and how strongly that it had impacted me. I know this series is available, or it should be, it was last time I checked, is available digitally on Amazon Prime Reading. So if you're interested in reading Mars, that is a great way to read it for free, especially if you have Amazon Prime. So this is definitely a series I would love to see reprinted and get some love, because going into number 2, this was, I think, a pretty big shocker when it got licensed, and that is Marmalade Boy. I don't have this, but it came out originally in 1992. I don't remember when it wrapped up, when the last volume was, but it came out, yeah, in 1992, and this originally did get published as, I don't know how many volumes, we'll say like 7 or 8 volumes from Tokyo Pop quite a few years ago, but it's definitely out of print. But then Seven sees the license that they're doing special editions of Marmalade Boy. Now, funny story about this is that originally I pre-ordered volume 1 and volume 2 because I had seen or read a little bit of chapter 1, and it was so funny because I am very skeptical of step sibling romances. Like, I don't like them because I have step siblings, so it's really uncomfortable for me personally. It's probably one of like the very few tropes that I'm like, I can't do this. But I read some of the first chapter and it was so hilarious. I think the main girl's name is Miki, and her reactions to her parents are so spot on, and it definitely does not have the step sibling romance vibe that I was anticipating. Granted, I know it's just the first chapter, but it's not like I've seen with other things where I'm like, this is a little bit too uncomfortable. I mean, the parents are just out there, because basically, trying to think of how to word this because it's so confusing, but Miki's parents, they go like on a cruise or something. The mom and the dad end up falling in love with these other people who happen to be married and be a couple. And so they come back, like both couples come back, and they decide to like switch spouses and all live in this giant house. And the other couple has a son. And so now she has a stepbrother whose name is Yu, I believe it is. He's pretty much a jerk from, I think the blurb says. He didn't really seem like a jerk to me when I read chapter 1, but he's going to bring some interesting shenanigans, I think, to Miki's life. And so Miki's reactions to all of this crazy, outlandish stuff was just so on point to me and so funny. So even though I canceled originally, so I pre-ordered volume 1 and then I canceled it like 2 weeks ago, and then I was like, you know what? I really do want to read this. And so I ended up pre-ordering volume 1, and then I ended up re-pre-ordering volume 2. I'm very excited that this is actually, yeah, it just came out yesterday. I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really interesting read. And this is one of those times I'm very curious to see, since it came out so long ago, how is this going to affect me today, you know, way past the 2000s, where we have different tropes now. And so I'm curious to see how I'm going to like the rest of the series, the rest of the volume. I hope that I do, since I did pre-order volume 2, and I'm like, I don't want to cancel it this time because I just don't. So I'm glad that this series that seems very loved and very iconic to many people is getting special attention. It makes me hopeful that Mars can too have its time to shine. For number 3, I'm featuring my first shonen manga of today's video, and I knew that I wanted to feature this one, and that is Slam Dunk. We finally, as many people I've been seeing in the manga community, we have the whole series, and I'm really, really excited. This was surreal to know that this, originally the first volume came out, I think, or was first serialized in 1991. I was like, yo, me and Slam Dunk are sharing the same birth year because my birthday is next week, and I'm just like, we were basically born the same year. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I'm really excited. I have heard such amazing and glowing things from multiple people who have been reading Slam Dunk. My husband originally watched the anime. I don't know, it's been probably a few months now. I don't know. Everybody's been sick in my household since the beginning of January, so my sense of time is like way off right now. But he watched the anime and he absolutely loved it. He was like, we're gonna go back order all of the volumes. And I'm like, okay, because he's only done that with Komi Can't Communicate, so I'm like, he must have really, really enjoyed the anime. I did see different episodes, but not all the way through, and I really also enjoyed what I read. I'm just so excited because I'm like, yes, I always, for the most part, I say most part, because if you've seen the live stream that I had with Carrie last week, I sort of went on a tangent / passionate rant about a sports manga that I do not feel like is a sports manga. So if you're curious, you're more than welcome to go check that out, though. I'm sorry if it hurts anybody's feelings on that one. But anyway, let's go back to Slam Dunk. I do feel like this is sort of the quote-unquote godfather for a lot of sports titles. When we think of sports manga, Slam Dunk is one of those iconic titles that always comes to mind as being sort of like quote-unquote the big 3. I cannot wait to read this to see if I also too feel this way. about this series. I do know that I appreciate that we sort of have a low-key romance. I know it's not necessarily a romance, but I do appreciate when we get even just a hint or inklings, even if it's not going to go anywhere, that we do get that in sports manga, because I feel like it just sort of makes it better, even if it doesn't necessarily need it. Sorry, that was sort of a little bit of a side trail right there, but I cannot wait to read this. Again, I'm so happy that Viz Media reprinted this. Again, it gives me just hope for these older series that we can get them in English, or if they've been out for a long time, hence Slam Dunk, because I don't think anybody really thought Slam Dunk was going to get reprinted for a long time, and it was really hard to find. And then those reprints were just coming in so fast, I think near the end of last year and early this year, which is just the coolest thing, because another series and my other shonen manga that I'm going to be featuring today is Yu Yu Hakusho, and this would be number 4. It's pretty surreal to know that this one came back in print as well. I just saw a friend of mine that she was able to get the rest of the series, like her full collection is complete. I have been on the fence if I want to collect Yu Yu Hakusho. I loved volume 1 so very much. I still have not seen the anime, because I'm going to admit that I'm pretty salty that they did not include one of my favorite chapters in the actual anime. So I'm like, I don't know. But I'm very curious about reading more. I have read a little bit of volume 2. Yeah, I think I read some of volume 2, but I did put on my wish list of like manga titles. I'm like, maybe slowly over time I will get it. And because it's such a relief now to know like it's not a rush to go out there before it goes out of print or out of stock, where you're like, will it ever come back in stock? Because man, we all know that that is a struggle on them out of stock titles and not knowing when it's going to be coming back. But this is another series that I just think is so cool that we have just back in print. And I do feel, even though there's series I wish Viz would listen to the community about, which one of my picks is coming up for that it is cool to see that Viz Media is listening to the community overall and reprinting these older titles so that more of us can appreciate and love these characters and this story. I don't remember when this first released. I think it was like 1992, I think. It's just amazing to find out how old these series are. I'm like, I had no idea. Okay, no, this one was 1990. This is 1990 to 1994, which is so crazy. First published in 1990 and 1991. Oh my goodness. That is just like, wow. So here it is in English, freshly reprinted. Well, this one I got from a friend, so I don't know if this is actually the latest reprint. Okay, mine's the 12th printing in September 2020, so I don't know, but here it is, and very, very excited. Now for number 5, this is another series I would desperately love to see get reprinted, like Slam Dunk and Yu Yu Hakusho, that I feel is very worthy of either getting some special attention where we get like a special omnibus, or it just gets reprinted. Like, I'd be so happy, because the volumes that I need are like over $100, and I can't justify that. And that is from Far Away. I love this series. I did a video review last December during the 25 days of shoujo manga, and I'm really excited because if you watched that video, you knew that I did an art commission, or commissioned a friend that's an artist, and oh my goodness, the official prints should be here this Wednesday. I'm hoping to feature them. I probably won't be able to feature them in this channel, but I'm hoping to feature them on Instagram. I'll definitely leave a link down below when I have posted on Instagram so you guys can see the pictures. I'm so stoked. Noriko and Izark are the ultimate shoujo ship couple. I've said that more than once, and I stand by that so very strongly. This is such a unique isekai, and I really think it would have a positive response if Viz Media decided to reprint this series. It so desperately needs it, because it's so good, guys. It's so wonderful. I will not ramble about it, just because if you want the rambles, go check out that video on how this story impacted me. It was very, very beautiful, and I'm like, I'm due for a reread, because it is a phenomenal, engaging story. And that's all I'm gonna say, so I don't ramble and like repeat myself over and over of how good it is. For my honorable mention, I actually had to double take this date to make sure that it was right, because it's the oldest title that I'm featuring today, because it came out in 1954. I think it was like 1958 was the final volume. It was 3 volumes at the time in Japan, and that is Princess Knight. Now, I didn't realize, because recently it got an omnibus edition. I don't remember who the publisher is, but it seems to be a very iconic and another groundbreaking shoujo kind of manga. But I didn't know before we got the omnibus, because I thought that was the first time it had been and printed in English that we got a two volume series of it, basically. I don't know who the publisher is, but I found out this morning my library has it, so I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and get volumes 1 and 2. Hopefully it's a good translation and reflects the story really well. But what's interesting about this is that the girl that's on the cover, there was a prank done by an angel, and she has 2 hearts. She has a male heart and a female heart. In the country that she lives in, though, only the males can become heirs. So she's raised as a young man, but she's also a young girl. And so I think this is a story that tackles her gender and what she as a person identifies as, and accepting, I think, who she is as well, since that she does have 2 hearts, because it talks about, I think, in one of the older blurb that she can best any man in fencing, but she also can dress up and be this beautiful, young, proper young lady. And I was really curious about that. And I've heard good things about this story, but I have not heard many people talk about it. But the people I know who read it really enjoyed it. And it's considered, I don't know if it's considered a classic per se, but I do feel like out of the titles I featured today that this was the most groundbreaking, because it does address gender roles and gender expectations. And I was very curious about that because I wanted to, I think, get the omnibus, but then I saw how big it was because it's 3-in-1 volumes, I believe, or 3-in-1 volume. And that it was $26, and I was like, ooh, I was like, that's quite a hefty volume and hefty price. And so when I saw my library had the older 2-in-1 or 2 volumes, I'm like, we're gonna go check it out and see what this story is about. Hopefully it'll be really interesting, and if I really enjoy it and whatnot, I'll definitely do a video review on this channel, because I'm very, very curious to see what happens with this angel break that goes wrong and how this even works that she can have 2 hearts. I think it's not more of where I need to think about that, but more about her struggle and the things that she goes through and how she is going to sort of, I think, tackle this situation that she's in, especially because I think like somebody is out to get her. I don't know if they're, you know, trying to harm her, but it's definitely not a good thing that they're trying to do to her. So her life, I think, is sort of at risk there, and she's got to be very careful. And I'm like, I hope so. I hope that she will be. Those are all my picks today for older manga titles. I'm so excited, like I said, that many of these older series are getting love, that they're getting attention, that we're getting reprints. I hope some of the other ones that I featured get that same treatment at some point in the upcoming years, preferably like next year or this year. At least we know that many of these publishers are starting to listen to the community and seeing, hey, we want those older titles too, not just all this new amazing stuff that you're giving us. But I would love to hear from you, friends. What are some older titles that you know of that maybe you love, that are your favorites, or they're on your radar? Let me know down below, as well as if you've read any of these, what did you think of them? And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!